So hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Kweli, the anti-burnout coach for high-achieving professional women. So welcome to the 11th episode of the Anti-Burnout Live series, Thrive Beyond Burnout. So we have 12 episodes scheduled, and this is episode 11. And so the last scheduled episode in the series is next week, and it is about saying no to others and prioritizing yourself. So I hope you will join me for that one as well. So I'm excited to be here on Facebook Live and LinkedIn Live. All right. So today's topic is protect your peace, crafting boundaries for your personal and professional life. And we'll be discussing practical strategies for creating and enforcing boundaries. And we'll discuss why setting boundaries is so critical, especially for those who are experiencing burnout. So, what are boundaries and what are the different categories of boundaries? So, let's start by defining what we mean by boundaries. So, boundaries are simply the limits and guidelines we set to protect our well-being, emotionally, physically, and mentally. They help us communicate what we need and expect in our relationships, whether it's at work, with family, or even in our personal time. In other words, boundaries are the rules you create to ensure that your time, energy, and peace are respected. And I wanted to share a quote from Nedra Glover Tawwab. She is an author. I hope I pronounced her name properly. My name is Kweli, so I like to get people's names right. Her book is called Set Boundaries, Find Peace, a guide to reclaiming yourself. And Tawwab describes boundaries as expectations and needs that help you feel comfortable and safe in your relationships, which I love. I love that definition. And she emphasizes that maintaining healthy boundaries requires clarity about your values and learning to say no to others, which is actually next week's topic. So, when we talk about boundaries, there's several types to consider. Understanding the different categories of boundaries can help you to better assess which areas of your life you may need more protection. So let's talk about the 5 key boundary types. One is physical boundaries. And so this is about your personal space, whether it's deciding how close someone can get or what kind of physical interactions you're comfortable with. So physical boundaries help maintain your sense of safety. 2, emotional boundaries. So emotional boundaries are essential to protect your feelings and mental well-being. This means knowing when to share personal information and when to protect your emotional energy. 3, time boundaries. These are about managing your time effectively and not allowing work or social obligations to take over. It could be setting clear work hours or allocating personal time for self-care. 4, work boundaries. So especially in our professional lives, work boundaries ensure that we don't take on too much. It may mean not responding to emails after hours or saying no to extra projects that stretch you too thin. And 5, digital boundaries. And we talked a little bit about this in last week's episode. But in our tech-driven world, digital boundaries are crucial. It's about managing your screen time and disconnecting when necessary. So each of these boundaries is essential in helping us maintain a healthy harmony between our personal and professional lives. And I see a little movement over here. Hi, Anasia. Good to see you. All right, so let's talk about the importance of setting boundaries. So why are boundaries so critical, especially for those who are dealing with burnout? Well, when you're constantly overcommitting and saying yes to everything, you end up stretching yourself way too thin. You may feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of responsibilities and expectations placed on you, both at work and at home. And when we fail to set boundaries, we give others control over our time and our energy. We're saying yes to tasks or commitments that don't align with our values or our priorities, which can lead to frustration and burnout. And burnout, as we've discussed, is caused by prolonged stress. So, stress that builds up when you're constantly trying to meet everyone's needs except your own. So, boundaries are like a protective shield. They safeguard your energy, your time, and your mental well being. So, by setting clear limits, you reduce the overwhelm and regain control of your life. You start to put yourself first, which is something that my clients, high achieving professional women, often struggle with. So, when you create boundaries, you're giving yourself permission to prioritize your well being, to protect your peace, and to avoid burnout. It's good to see you all. See, we have a few folks on. Okay. So now that we understand why boundaries are so important, let's dive into some practical strategies to help you create and enforce boundaries that work for you, whether it's at work or at home. I have 10 practical strategies listed here. So, strategy number 1, identify your non-negotiables. So start by figuring out what's most important to you. These are the things you refuse to compromise on, like spending time with family, having alone time for self-care, or not answering work emails after a certain time. So knowing your non-negotiables will make it easier to set clear boundaries that align with your values. Strategy number 2, communicate clearly. Be direct when communicating your boundaries, whether it's telling your boss that you won't respond to emails after a certain time, or letting a friend know that you can't meet for brunch every week. But being clear up front makes it easier for others to respect your boundaries. Strategy number 3 is to use I statements. So when communicating your boundaries, frame them using I statements. This makes your boundary about your needs, not about blaming or accusing others. For example, you may say to your supervisor, I need to leave work by 6 p.m. to spend time with my family. Or just, I need to leave work by 6 p.m., period. Which may be more effective than saying, you're keeping me at work too late. So you see the difference there. You're telling what you need. Strategy number 4, be consistent. So setting boundaries is one thing, but enforcing them is another. And consistency is key. If you constantly bend your own boundaries, people won't take them seriously. Once you set a boundary, stick to it. Inconsistency can cause confusion and may lead others to push your limits. For example, if you set a boundary that you don't answer your work emails after 6 p.m., I keep saying this example about emails because it's common. But if you set a boundary that you don't answer your work emails after 6 p.m., be consistent with it, even when you feel tempted to make exceptions. Strategy number 5, set boundaries with your time. Time is one of your most precious resources. So create blocks in your schedule for focused work, for personal time, and for downtime. And be firm about protecting those blocks of time, whether it's saying no to an extra meeting or not attending every social event. Strategy number 6, use technology to support your boundaries. So there's apps and tools like the Do Not Disturb feature. We talked about that last week. time blocking apps, or scheduling tools that can help you manage your time and avoid getting overwhelmed. So use these to set up tech boundaries that keep you focused and reduce distractions. Strategy number 7. This is such a big one. Be okay with discomfort. So sometimes setting boundaries will be uncomfortable, especially if you're used to being a yes person. I was a yes person. That's okay. Discomfort is part of the process, but in the long run, it's worth it to protect your peace. As Brene Brown says, choose discomfort over resentment. The discomfort of establishing boundaries in the moment is far better than the long-term resentment that can build if you don't establish the boundary. So I'll repeat that. Choose discomfort over resentment. All right, strategy number 8, practice self-compassion. So setting boundaries can be tough, and you might feel guilty at times. So practice self-compassion by reminding yourself that boundaries are necessary for your mental and emotional health. And don't be too hard on yourself if setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first. Strategy number 9, practice saying no. So learning to say no is a skill, and it's an important one at that. And you don't have to explain yourself or feel guilty. This is a muscle that gets stronger the more you practice. And we'll actually spend a lot of time talking about saying no in the 12th and final episode next week. And finally, strategy number 10, prepare for pushback. So this is a whole section by itself. So not everyone will respect your boundaries immediately. Be prepared for pushback, especially if you're setting new boundaries in long-established relationships. Stay firm and remember that protecting your peace is more important than pleasing everyone. So let's just briefly talk about how to handle it when others are not respecting your boundaries. And remember that boundaries are about protecting your peace, not controlling others' reactions. So here's what to do when others don't respect your boundaries. 1, reiterate your boundary. So calmly restate it, like, I need to leave work by 6 p.m. for family time. Same example as earlier. 2, stay consistent. Be firm and avoid making exceptions, even if it feels uncomfortable. 3, reevaluate the relationship. So if someone consistently disrespects your boundaries, you may need to reassess that relationship. 4, enforce consequences. So sometimes consequences are needed, like just not responding to after hours emails or limiting contact with the person in question. And 5, check in with yourself. So if you feel resentment, reassess the boundary and adjust as needed. And it's normal for boundaries to evolve over time. Now, here's the important thing to remember. Boundaries are really for you. They're not about controlling how others behave, but they're about deciding your response and how you will respond if someone doesn't respect the boundary. So it's about knowing how you will protect your peace when those boundaries are tested. You get to decide what's acceptable in your life and what actions you'll take if someone crosses the line. So this is how boundaries give you control over your own energy and well-being, regardless of how others respond. Okay, so those are the 10 practical strategies to craft and enforce your boundaries. 1, identify your non-negotiables. 2, communicate clearly. 3, use I statements. 4, be consistent. 5, set boundaries with your time. 6, use technology to support your boundaries. 7, be okay with discomfort. Choose discomfort over resentment. I'll repeat that one again. 8, practice self-compassion. 9, practice saying no. And we have a whole episode about saying no next week. And 10, prepare for pushback. So by incorporating these strategies into your daily life, you'll be better equipped to protect your peace and prioritize your well-being. Okay, so just to recap, today we talked about why setting boundaries is so critical for protecting your peace, especially for those who are experiencing burnout. We also explored 10 practical strategies to help you craft and enforce your boundaries. And we talked about what to do when others don't respect your boundaries. So for the past several weeks, we have been talking about various tools in the toolbox that can help with burnout recovery, like daily routines, stress reduction techniques, living your values, self-care, self-compassion, the power of sisterhood. Last week was reducing screen time, and then today, boundaries. So I know there may be some ladies who are watching who are ready to take these ideas even further. So if you are exhausted and overwhelmed from taking care of everything and everyone else, I have a solution for you. It is my 4-week virtual hands-on program called the Reignite Your Life Intensive. And I finally have the dates. The dates for the October cohort are Thursday, October 10th, Thursday, October 17th, Thursday, October 24th, and Thursday, October 31st at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we meet on Zoom for about 60 to 90 minutes, sometimes closer to 60, sometimes closer to 90. And you can apply for the October cohort starting today. You just answer a couple of easy questions. And if we're a good fit to work together, I will welcome you into the program. So here's what's possible for you when we work together. You will reconnect with your core values, gain clarity on what you truly want, and reclaim your time by focusing on what matters most. You'll learn to design a fulfilling life that emphasizes self-care and allows you to spend more time doing what you love and allows you to spend more quality time with the people that you love. Plus, you'll learn to set and enforce boundaries and start saying no to others so that you can say yes to yourself. And you'll benefit from the accountability and support of a like-minded community of high-achieving women who are also committed to real, lasting change.